I don't know about all of you, but I'm feeling slightly disoriented not being in the Lotus Sutra. It's like, where are we? I guess we're right here, huh? I thought Joanna Macy and her work would be a good transition from the Lotus Sutra because her work is so broad and deep and action-oriented. So I want to talk about that in a minute. But first, precepts tonight afterwards. It's we'll be doing the 10th Clear Mind precepts. So we keep doing the cycle over and over just because it feels like people keep wanting to do it, and it's such a wonderful thing to talk about our lives through the precepts. So we'll come to the end of a cycle, but because it's an enso, we'll do not disparaging the triple treasure, which is really not disparaging life. And then we'll take a little bit of a break. I'll have to figure this out, and then we'll start again in a couple months. Everybody's always welcome, and you can jump in wherever you are because the precepts have no beginning and no end, and we're all going to die, so we better wake up. No. Maybe I said this to my son's friends recently, and my son's sort of like put this mirror up for me, and my son said to me, "Do you know that within the first 10 minutes of every conversation you talk about death?" I thought, this poor man has been growing up. I mean, he was a boy. Anyway, I sort of can't help myself. And it's not funny, but anyway, I seem to be stuck with myself. So we are this week and on Tuesday doing Joanna Macy's work, and you will, in the newsletter, it's wonderful that the work that Reconnects has been republished as coming back to life. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But if you look at that link that's in the newsletter, the whole book is there. Oh, wow. So it's pretty amazing. And then a week from Thursday on the 21st, which is the solstice, really nice coincidence is we can't use this room because they are doing a solstice labyrinth from like 10 to 5 or something here, or 4. Wow. And we're invited to come and participate, but we're going to meet at Ellen's house that day from 10 to 12, and we will do a solstice ritual that Shelley is, our very own Shelley, is concocting, creating, has been tending, which will be beautiful to come forward, and then we'll have a little tea. So it'll be a nice and appropriate seasonal ritual, and everybody's invited online. We'll figure out how to do that. Then beginning in January, I'm telling you what's in the newsletter, but I'm saying it anyway. It seemed to me, we'll do the Vimalakirti further down the road. We just did a big Mahayana Sutra, and I thought maybe we'll take a little break. And we're gonna, I meant to bring the book. It's an anthology that Bhikkhu Bodhi put together of the Buddha's teachings on social and communal harmony, which seems to me like we might learn a thing or two in a time when our world isn't doing such a good job. Remembering social and communal harmony. That will begin. So after the 21st, we'll take the week of the 25th off. The 2nd and the 4th of January, Erica will lead online. It will only be online that first week of January. I'm going to be at Tassajara with the Wildland Firefighter Retreat, and then that following week, which must be the 9th, and then from then on, we'll be back here meeting hybrid, as we always do. All that makes sort of more or less sense, I hope? Okay. Okay. Oh, and please note that January 28th, another nice kind of coincidence that didn't work out is we can't be at Open Sky to do our all-day sitting, So we're going to do a half-day sitting at my house and then an all Sangha meeting in the afternoon. So I think that kind of worked out nicely, and that will be good too. Okay. And one last one is I got to spend most of the day with Paula Arai yesterday. It was really, we studied some of her books, and she's a pretty remarkable human being. And I've been part of organizing a year of celebrating the voices of women, past, present, and future through the SCBA. And most of them are going to be online, but the one with Paula Arai is going to be hybrid in person. I'll send this out as soon as we get the flyer, which may be tomorrow, at the Institute of Buddhist Studies, which is in Berkeley, which is actually an amazing, I've never been in it. It's an amazing facility.
They have a great gift shop.
Oh, really? I didn't.
That's where I got my Dharma pen.
Oh, really? I didn't see that part. And anyway, I really hope people come, and if you are inspired and want to be a volunteer, we need, I'm not going to look at anybody. I'm trying to look at the floor. But it'll be really cool. And part of it's going to be a ritual celebrating women ancestors that Paula Arai created. So,
What's the date on that?
some trouble with Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I read it. I don't know what.
Can you hear? Yeah?
It might,
Yeah.
who
Okay.
knows, it might be her connection or,
Okay.
Right.
but sorry.
Okay.
And what's the date on that, Chris?
January 14th.
Do you know what sort of a day of the week that is off the top of your head?
It's a Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll be cool. It really will be. Okay. So that's enough announcements. Joanna Macy. I thought maybe I would give a little context. You may all have your own stories about Joanna Macy. Joanna Macy, not so long ago, was one of the few people besides Thich Nhat Hanh who was doing socially engaged Buddhism. You just looked around and there just wasn't anybody. And she was really actively involved in Sri Lanka and the Sarvodaya movement. And when Bruce, my husband, and I and my young child, we were leaving San Francisco Zen Center, we actually signed up and were going to go work in Sri Lanka with her in the Sarvodaya movement, and then the Civil War broke out. So we couldn't go, but we were in contact with her, and it was all in motion, and we finally got back to Sri Lanka on the other side of the Civil War. But it's one of those, those kind of markers you have in your life where something was all ready to go and it didn't happen, but it did happen in a certain way because we were rolling towards it. So I feel a deep and intimate relationship with Joanna Macy. The other one is, and maybe you've heard this story, is in the early days of the Iraq War. They, in the plaza in San Francisco, there was a labyrinth created that was made, the boots of soldiers who had been killed at that point were lined up there, but there was a labyrinth made out, it's like history being repeated now, even. The labyrinth was made up of shoes of women and children who were civilians. And I went to walk into the labyrinth, and just by chance, Joanna Macy was in front of me.
Mm.
And I followed her through the labyrinth, and I, it's like I felt present and I was feeling it. But when Joanna Macy got to the center of the labyrinth, I have never felt, it sits in my body. I have never seen anybody like fall to their knees, like the earth just pulled her, the grief of it just pulled her to her knees. She was there for a really long time, or what seemed like a long time to me, and then got up and completed the labyrinth. But that visceral feeling of how deeply Joanna Macy feels things, and that out of the willingness, I don't even think it's willingness, I don't think she has any choice, but in that, she just hasn't had any choice, I think, as all of us don't have any choice in some way, to find some way to respond. It's like the planet, she feels it. So that's where her work has come from, and that's what I deeply respect. And it also feels to me, we will remember, because it wasn't that long ago in the Lotus Sutra, that the bodhisattvas rose up out of the earth. You know, Joanna Macy we're all bodhisattvas, and Joanna Macy is clearly one of the bodhisattvas that came up out of the earth, and the Buddha knew she was here, and she's on it. So she's going to help us. So I thought I would begin with one of her classics, World as Lover and World as Self. And I'll tell you why. One, because it's a wonderful book. And two, when I looked at this new rendition of the work that reconnects, that's now being called Coming Back to Life, is, well, this is Molly, who's the co-author. This is what she says. After 36 years, it is still the work that reconnects, but it's got a finer edge. Like Manjushri's sword, ready to slice through the confusions and delusions that entangle the world, that entangle the mind. I like to picture its sharp tools cutting us free from all we do not need and do not want. I think of how its practice reveals what we do want and how it's right there in front of us, waiting for us to reach for it together. Living within a society that denies the pain that it causes engenders deep conflict within us, but the taboo against speaking of it or even seeing it are subtle, strong, and complex. Being nice, even being intelligent, means going along with the communal deception. Her work's gotten much sharper. That's my experience. And I think it's probably obvious why, is the world has gotten, it's called that forth from her, because we're walking closer to an edge. This is Molly again. I believe we can cut through denial and take a good hard look at the dysfunctional economic system that has captured humanity, and it's destroying our life support system. Let's reclaim our true humanity, loving, generous, caring, connected, and joyful, heroic, persevering, willing to endure suffering as part of life, heart-centered, creative, and wise. Whoa. Okay. But she's going to take us into some places that are probably going to be uncomfortable. The work that reconnects, as presented in this book, can help us reclaim our true humanity. Okay. So I wanted to start with, that's why I wanted to start with World as Lover, World as Self, because it gives a more gentle entry to it. And I've read this. I remember doing this here before, but I'm not sure when or how long ago. I just have to find it. It really starts in gratitude. Where you begin is gratitude, always. Gratitude, always. Gratitude. And here's a love letter to the Milky Way by rap artist Drew Dellinger. I want to tell you about love. There are approximately 1 trillion galaxies. Ooh, we're already in the Lotus Sutra, right? I want to tell you there are approximately 1 trillion galaxies I want to tell you about. In the Milky Way, there are about 100 billion stars. I want to tell you love is the breath of the cosmos. That's not the Lotus Sutra, for goodness sakes. I want to write a love letter to the Milky Way. Everything is an expression of the galaxies. My 30 trillion cells, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts or the 16 precepts, the 7 energy centers of the body, everything is the Milky Way, including my lover and every kiss of every lover that's ever lived. The deep sky, the ubiquity of spirit, the DNA of dreams, the interlocking patterns of the cosmic constellations. Cosmic and justice are synonymous. Cosmos and justice are synonymous with beauty, but parts of the Milky Way don't give off light. Sometimes it feels like I've got ground zero in my heart. The dark sun bleeds shadows. The dark sun leaves shadows on everything. The forecast falls for scattered to broken skies. If there wasn't so much love, there wouldn't be so much pain. It's like love is the nervous system of the universe, bringing us joy and sorrow. I inherit the voice of the Milky Way in my dreams. The entire galaxy revolves around a single drop of wine. Your skin, the texture of the cosmos, the religion beyond religion. I want to know you like the wind knows the canyons or the rain knows the rivulets. Lightning is continuously striking in 100 places every moment. The universe spills through our dreams. The future belongs to the most compelling story. Even the word love is not adequate to define the fabric of space-time. If we could sense everything at once, like Krishna entering history with all the memory of his past incarnations, then I could tell you about love. Same lineage as the Lotus Sutra. I'm fairly certain of that. So, first chapter in Coming Back to Life is called To Choose Life. It starts with a verse from Pago Medicine Woman Chant. How shall I begin my song in the blue night that is settling? In the great night, my heart will go out. Toward me, the darkness comes rattling. In the dark night, my heart will go out. Joanna Macy says, we live in an extraordinary moment on Earth. We possess more technical prowess and knowledge than our ancestors could have dreamt of. At the same time, we witness destruction of life in dimensions that confronted no previous generation in recorded history. At the same time, certainly our ancestors knew wars, plagues, and famine, but today it is not just a forest here and some farmlands and fisheries there. Today, entire species are dying. And whole cultures and ecosystems on a global scale, even to the oxygen-producing plankton of our seas. I think I just want to mention, because we are so actively being, the word that came to me, bombarded by images of war. And of course it's the human and cultural devastation and destruction, but it's also the earth. Oh my goodness, what are we doing? So, the good news is we can still opt for a life-sustaining world. we can choose life. Even as we face global climate disruption, world-encompassing nuclear contamination, we can still act for the sake of a livable world. Bodhisattvas. Buddha said, no, all you people, all you bodhisattvas, you shining ones out in the cosmos, we're okay. We got everybody here. So here we are. It is crucial that we know this. We can meet our needs without destroying our life support system. We can do this. To choose life means to build a life-sustaining society. A sustainable society is one that satisfies its needs without jeopardizing the prospects of future generations. And then she says, to choose life in this planet time is a mighty adventure. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like you just start going, oh. It's like, wake up. Mm. Joanna Macy's an amazing human being. Choosing our story. By story is meant our version of reality. We're told lots of stories in the practice period, lots of parables. So now we now know how do we make our story Bodhisattva Buddha stories with and for the whole world? By story is meant our version of reality, the lens through which we see and understand what is happening now in our world. Often our story is largely unconscious and unquestioned, and we assume it to be the only reality. Well, now we know that's not true, right? Our hearts and minds are open. Okay, here's the 3 stories that she describes. 1, business as usual. Here, the defining assumption is that there is little need to change the way we live. Now, we may say, well, duh, I know that, but I don't know about you, but I know denial and numbness as much as anybody. It's like, we got to do something, and then habit is so strong. Second story, she calls the great unraveling, is the story we tend to hear from environmental scientists, independent journalists, and activists. It draws attention to the disasters, which is helpful, and we also know the consequence of that can be numbing. Third story, which is Joanna Macy's work that she's brought forward forever, the Great Turning, is the story we hear from those who see the great unraveling and don't want it to have the last word. Mm-hmm. It involves the emergence of new and creative human responses that enable the transition from the industrial growth society to a life-sustaining society. The central plot is about joining together to act for the sake of life on Earth. So, and I would encourage you to look in the book because she's very specific. The Great Turning, there are holding actions that we can do in defense of life. Political, legislative, and legal forms, as well as direct action. We call them holding actions because they attempt to hold a line, to buy time. No. just sign petitions or pay attention. Or I think there's happening in Sebastopol. I think it's in Sebastopol. It was in the newsletter once. They're doing a vigil every week. Just a few little Buddhists going down there and sitting, just to be there. These don't have to be big things. We can all find. And we do find, and we'll continue to find, and we'll encourage each other to find ways to be of service, to be a bodhisattva in small actions. Your actions affect me. Hopefully my actions affect you. To me, all of this has a lot to do with number 2, what we do here. Transforming the foundations of our common life. We not only study the structural causes of the global crisis, we are also learning old and new ways to better serve the common good. I think Dharma and Sangha and practice and sitting together and then standing up actually is and does save the world, because it makes us more responsive, it makes us more tender, it wakes us up. It's not so easy to be numb. We see the world and we actually want to do something to help. Oh, here it is, number 3. Again, the Lotus Sutra that seems so far out there. But it also completely helped us, number 3, shift in perception and values. We now see and know in a bigger way. We now, maybe more deeply through practice period, and through teas and sitting together, is that the way we live does affect each other, and that we really do want to practice basic goodness and to take care of the person and the things around us and near us. Bill Plotkin says, "The deep imagination is also our primary resource for recognizing the emerging future." The deep imagination is our primary resource for recognizing the emerging future, for seeing the visionary possibilities of what we can create right now, individually and collectively. It is our essential resource for all genuine human creativity. Imagination. Now, isn't that something? Which is really different than despair and hopelessness. Just go out the door, feel the night sky. He was from David Abram. May a good vision catch me. May a benevolent vision take hold of me and move me. May a deep and full vision come over me and burst open around me. May I awaken into the story that surrounds. May I awaken into a beautiful story. And again, the book is amazing as a resource. She's very specific and very Manjushri-like in offerings, so don't turn away from the book. But let me read you something from Robinson Jeffers. She says, though we hardly have words for it, this cognitive, perceptual, and spiritual revolution is occurring at a great rate of speed. My sense is it's probably why there's such a strong backlash. People just get scared. It's like it's happening too fast and we can't keep up with it. And of course, people's lives and livelihoods and perceptions of reality and what was stable, and I mean, what are you going to depend on in a world that's impermanent? But you get scared when basic assumptions are turned upside down. Again, practice stability, touching the earth. It makes a difference. If we stay stable, even for a moment, it helps somebody else stay stable. And when you can stay stable, then you can touch creativity and imagination. So here's from Robinson Jeffries. I entered the life of the brown forest and the great life of the ancient peaks, the patience of stone. I felt the changes in the veins, in the throat of the mountain, a grain in many centuries. We have our own time, not yours. And I was the stream draining the mountain wood, and I the stag drinking, and I was the stars boiling with light, wandering alone, each one the lord of his own summit. And I was the darkness outside the stars. I included them. They were part of me. I was humankind, also a moving lichen on the cheek of a round stone. How can I express the excellence I have found that has no color but clearness, no honey but ecstasy? Joanna says, this shift in our sense of identity will be life-saving in the socio-political and economic tragedies, ecological trauma. This shift in our sense of identity will be and is, I would say, life-saving in the socio-political and ecological traumas that lie before us. They surely lie before us. We're living them. But when we know and revere the wholeness of life, when we know and revere the wholeness of life, we can stay alert and steady. We know there is no individual salvation. We join hands to find the ways the world self heals. The work that reconnects helps us open up our eyes, our minds, and hearts. Then, reconnected with our deepest desire, we will choose life. And I think, yay, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. I mean, I don't care what you call it, but it helps me know we're in the right place. These things you can read and you can know in your mind, but if you practice deeply, which we do, we know these things, and we can keep coming back to them. And it's where we find energy and life and affirmation. So here's my question. You can talk about any of this. Joanna Macy talks about how we go numb. So I thought my first question is, what's it feel like to go numb in the midst? It's like it's too much, it's too hard, we just